Hey, it's Alex here. I didn't plan on meeting a shaman. Originally, I was just passing through Puerto Maldonado, a humid, buzzing little city on the edge of the Peruvian Amazon. It's the kind of place where the jungle feels like it's leaning over your shoulder. I had 2 nights booked in a modest guest house, with plans to head out toward Tambopata for a river lodge stay. But then, something strange happened. Something that made me change my entire plan. I was sitting in a cafe near the Plaza de Armas, editing some drone footage of the river, when an older man walked past my table and paused. He wore a white linen shirt, and his eyes, I don't even know how to describe them, like he had seen more than this lifetime. He looked at me for a few seconds, then said, "You have restless dreams. You're not here just for photos." Then he walked off. I sat there frozen. He didn't look like a hustler, didn't ask for anything. He just dropped that line like a match on dry leaves. I asked the waiter about him. Turns out his name was Don Aurelio, a curandero, a jungle healer, a shaman, a shaman's house. A few hours later, after asking around like a fool, I was led to a man named Mateo Don, Aurelio's nephew. He offered to take me a priver to his uncle's house. Said the old man never invited people without reason, so I did it. I canceled my lodge booking, packed my camera gear and water filter, and followed Mateo into a wooden canoe. As the motor roared and we left the noise of the city behind, something shifted. The trees grew taller, the air got thicker. We passed capybaras on the shore, scarlet macaws in the branches, and one massive caiman sunbathing on a log. After nearly an hour, we turned off the main river into a narrow tributary. The water darkened. Vines hung like curtains. We pulled up to a simple wooden home raised on stilts, with palm leaves for a roof and smoke curling from the back. He was waiting for me. The first night that night, as I sat with Don Aurelio near a fire made from jungle wood, he spoke to me not in cryptic riddles, but in sharp, calm truths. He said the forest is alive, but not in the way city people say that about nature. He meant literally. He said each plant, each tree, each river spirit has memory, voice, identity. Then he said this: "You came because something in you is breaking. You're hoping the forest doesn't notice. But she already has." That line stuck in my chest like a thorn. I hadn't told him anything about my personal life, about the panic attacks I'd been hiding for months, about the burnout that made me leave my marketing job in New York and disappear into the South American heat. He handed me a carved gourd full of something warm and bitter. It wasn't ayahuasca, not yet. He said it was La Bida de la Tia of Camalanga, Guayusa, and Mapacho, a pre-cleansing for the ceremony that would come later. And then, in the stillness of the jungle, while insects chanted and the fire cracked, he said, "Tonight you will dream, and the forest will answer." I slept in a hammock that swayed above the earth, with mosquito netting all around me. But I didn't really sleep. I dreamed I was underwater, watching the canopy above me filter the moonlight like stained glass. Something moved past me in the deep. I couldn't see it, but I heard it whisper in a language I somehow understood. When I woke up, my shirt was soaked in sweat, and Don Aurelio was already standing by the fire, waiting. He looked at me and said, "Good, you heard it." But I still didn't know what it was. Don Aurelio didn't speak to me that morning. He handed me a small bowl of mashed plantain, a few jungle berries, and water with camu in it.
Ow.
Then he motioned for me to follow. No camera, no phone, no shoes. Just a machete in his hand and a woven satchel slung across his chest. I hesitated, feeling exposed without gear, but I did what he asked. We walked. The jungle in the early morning is impossible to describe. It's not quiet, far from it. It hums and clicks and whistles. It's a language, and somehow I knew I was being watched, not by animals, by the forest itself, as if we were guests or intruders. We crossed a small creek where the water was so dark it looked like oil. Don Aurelio stopped, crouched, and scooped up a handful of mud. "This is memory," he said. "The earth here is old. It listens." He rubbed the mud on his forearms and then on mine. Cold, thick, and oddly grounding. "You are not separate," he told me. Not here. The bleeding tree, about an hour in, we reached a clearing where an enormous tree stood, easily over 30 meters tall, its roots twisted like sleeping serpents. He called it Sangre de Grado, Dragon's blood tree, and he took out a small wooden blade, cut a notch into the bark, and red sap bled from it like a wound. He caught it in a leaf and handed it to me. "For your scars," he said. "The ones you don't see." I didn't know whether to drink it or rub it on my skin. He guided my hand to my chest and said, "Here." It tingled. Not uncomfortable, but emotional. I can't explain it. Don Aurelio sat at the base of the tree and began to hum, not a melody, but a vibration. Low and steady. I sat with him, closed my eyes, and the forest felt like it was breathing. The story of the forest. He told me that this tree had been there since his great-grandfather's time. That the same tree witnessed the rubber barons who enslaved the local tribes. That it survived a fire started by missionaries who feared pagan trees. That it sheltered jaguars and shamans alike. "The jungle forgets nothing," he whispered, "even if you do." That sentence hit me harder than I expected. I realized I'd come here thinking I was running toward something new. But really, I was running away. Don Aurelio took a small wooden flute from his satchel and played a tune so ancient it gave me goosebumps. As he played, monkeys gathered in the canopy above, watching silently. One dropped a fruit near us, smiled, and said, "They remember this song. They were born with it." A warning. Before we returned, he took my hand and looked directly into my eyes for the first time that day. "Tonight, if the forest speaks again, do not run. If you run, it follows." The rest of the walk back was in silence, but my thoughts were screaming. What had I just felt? Why did I feel like something had already started, something I couldn't stop? When we reached his house, he let me rest. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd crossed an invisible threshold, and that the jungle had seen me. Not the me on Instagram, not the adventurer with the drone, the real me, the lost one. That evening, as the sun bled into the trees, Don Aurelio lit the fire. It wasn't like anything I'd seen before. He'd built it in a spiral. 3 concentric circles of kindling, herbs, and dry wood, arranged like a portal. The center of the flame wasn't just heat. It pulsed like a second heart. He said nothing to me at first. Instead, he moved around the fire, placing bowls filled with ash, flowers, dried toads, and a dark tar-like resin I would later learn was copal. The smell was sharp, earthy, and slightly sweet. It felt ancient. I asked him, half joking, "Is this a ritual?" He looked up slowly. "It is the remembering." Then he brought out the ayahuasca, the brew of shadows. I wasn't planning to do it. I'd come for a story, maybe a glimpse into the mysticism of the Amazon. But the truth? I needed this. I needed something to crack the numbness that had wrapped itself around me like armor. The brew looked harmless, dark brown, thick, like overboiled tea. The taste, though, was brutal. Bitter, earthy, metallic. I gagged but swallowed. Ow. Don Aurelio drank too. That surprised me. "I walk with you," he said, "not in front." We sat in silence, just the crackle of the fire. Jungle sounds in the distance, frogs, birds, rustling leaves. Then everything changed. The fire stretched. Literally, it grew, morphed. Became a snake of flame slithering around us. My body felt both heavy and weightless. The stars blinked like eyes. I tried to close mine, but what I saw behind them was worse.
The jungle within I was in water again, but not like the dream from the first night. This time it was deeper, darker. There were shapes moving around me, memories. My father yelling. The face of a woman I left behind. My own voice screaming underwater. My lungs didn't need air. Only truth. "You're not here to be healed," a voice said in the dark. "You're here to be stripped." Suddenly I was back at the fire. But it wasn't real fire anymore. It was breathing. Don Aurelio stood behind it, chanting something in Quechua. His shadow stretched like a wing over the earth. My hands were shaking. My chest was pounding. And he said to me, "What are you hiding from yourself?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because I didn't know. Until that moment. The real reason I came. It wasn't about travel. Or burnout. Or inspiration. It was shame. I had built my life on projection. Perfect captions. Cinematic shots. Travel reels that made me look like I had it all figured out. But I was empty. Hollowed by performance. Nasked by curation. What I wanted more than anything was an adventure. It was silence. It was honesty. And the jungle, and its wild indifference, gave me both.
I threw up. That's part of the ritual. The purge. But it didn't feel like sickness. It felt like release. Like something had been festering in me for years, and the forest had just said, enough. I passed out on the dirt floor next to the fire, still burning like a heartbeat. I awoke just before dawn, still on the earth floor, next to the dying embers of the fire. My throat was dry, my head strangely calm, not foggy, not aching, just quiet. Don Aurelio sat nearby, already awake, sipping something from a clay cup. He looked at me, smiled faintly, and said, "You saw it, didn't you?" I nodded, unsure whether what I saw was real, imagined, or somewhere in between. But it wasn't a dream. I know that now. Duh. Sometime during the night, after the purge. After the crying, and the fire breathing like a living thing, I felt something move behind me, slow, heavy, rhythmic. I turned, and there it was. A jaguar, not a hallucination. I can't explain how I knew, but I did. It wasn't an image my brain made up. It wasn't fear. It wasn't fantasy. It was real, even if not physical. The jaguar stepped out of the jungle shadows, golden eyes reflecting the flames. It didn't growl, didn't bare teeth, just looked at me. And then, in my head so clear it felt spoken I heard, "You wear a mask." Even here. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. I was pinned. Not by threat, but by truth. It was like the animal was holding up a mirror I'd been avoiding all my life. What it showed me, what I saw in that mirror, wasn't shame. Not this time. It was grief. It's not for someone else. For me. The me I abandoned when I chose to become someone I thought the world would like. The version of myself I filtered and packaged and sold to followers. The funny guy. The travel adventurer. It's the self-styled guru of minimalism, sustainability, wanderlust, freedom. All the while I was running, from my own voice, my own quiet. "Why did you come here?" the jaguar asked again. And in the dream, or vision, or whatever it was, I finally said it. Because I needed to be seen, not watched, not followed. Seen, the jaguar lowered its head and walked away. Back into the green-black jungle. I didn't follow. The morning after, back by the fire, Don Aurelio didn't need me to explain. He just nodded. "Jaguar is truth," he said. "It chooses who sees it." He reached into the ashes and pulled out a tiny bundle wrapped in banana leaf. Inside was a piece of dried root, dark, almost purple. "Kyrix anango," he said, "another plant teacher, but not for today. You have seen enough for now," he said. "Today you rest. The forest will finish the work," and it did. That day I lay in the hammock watching the leaves, listening to the monkeys, the parrots, the silence between the wind gusts. I didn't check my phone. I didn't open my camera. For the first time in years, I was okay with just being. It was still dark when Don Aurelio knocked on my door. The jungle fog curled around his silhouette like smoke. He wore a white tunic, no bag, no flute, no drink, just a torch in one hand and a machete in the other. "Come," he said, "no cameras." We walked for over an hour in silence. The jungle, usually deafening, felt reverent. As if it knew where we were going, my bare feet sank into the wet soil, my breath visible in the early dawn chill. And then we arrived. The forgotten temple, it wasn't what I expected. No statues, no giant stone guardians or moss-covered walls with sacred glyphs. Just a circular ruin of stone sunken into the earth and half-eaten by vines and roots. A place the jungle had tried to erase, but couldn't. "This is where it began," Don Aurelio said, lighting a candle and placing it in the center of the ring. "Before any church, before any law, before they put words on gods." He sat on the edge of the stones and gestured for me to sit opposite. "This is where they chose. The origin of power, Don Aurelio told me a story. One passed from mouth to ear, never written. Hundreds of years ago, this land was ruled by fear. Not from invaders, but from within. Tribal warlords who took women as property, slaughtered for territory, burned forests for gold. The earth began to rot. So a group of women, wise and hunted, came here under the full moon. And for the first time in their history, they made a decision to break the line of silence. They performed the first ritual of choosing, not of men, but of power, of intention, and the jungle responded. It gave them medicine, language, fire, memory, and the responsibility to protect it, to keep the knowledge hidden, not to hoard it, but to preserve it. That's what a shaman is, he said, not a magician, a librarian. Of stories the earth doesn't trust everyone with. Looked at me deeply and asked, "Do you know why I brought you here?" "Why me? I didn't," he continued. "Because you are loud. People listen to loud ones. But you are learning to be quiet, so listen back. That is rare." I sat there, unsure whether to cry or laugh, or just melt into the moss. He pulled a small stone from his pocket and handed it to me. A spiral, carved in the center. "This is not a gift," he said. "It's a reminder. Your mouth opens too easily. Make sure your ears do too." The jungle is dying as we sat in that sacred circle. He grew solemn. The jungle is not angry. She is tired. Don Aurelio told me that over 400,000 hectares of Amazon forest had been destroyed in the past year alone. That oil companies dig where sacred plants used to grow. That black market poachers now pay more for endangered frogs than for cocaine. That rituals are being sold to tourists like souvenirs. The earth is not asking us to worship her. She is asking us to protect her. The final teaching before we left the temple, Don Aurelio placed his hand on my shoulder. "You want to be a storyteller?" he said. "Then tell this. Magic is real, but it's quiet. It's vanishing." That final night, the fire was different. It wasn't a ritual. It wasn't for healing. It wasn't for the jungle. It was for me. Don Aurelio didn't hum. He didn't chant. He just sat across from me in the dark, with the orange glow flickering between us. The stars above felt impossibly close, like curious eyes hanging over the trees. He didn't say a word for what felt like an hour. Then he reached into his satchel and pulled out two things. In one hand, a small wooden flute. Smooth, simple, carved from chanta wood, black as night. In the other, a small mirror, cracked, the kind of thing you'd never find in nature. He placed them on the ground. "The flute sings," he said, "but only when you breathe into it. The mirror shows you, but only if you look." Then came the question. "You've seen the spirits. You've heard the voice of the forest. Now what will you do with it?" The truth behind the story, I sat frozen. For all my travels, all my stories, all my content, I had never been truly asked that question. What would I do with what I now knew? Would I return to the city, edit a trendy vlog, caption it "Shaman Secrets"? What they don't want you to know, and rack up views from people who would never step a foot into this jungle? Would I post a selfie with Don Aurelio, hashtag sacred wisdom, and cash in on the exoticism of a culture that barely survives? Or would I pause, listen, speak with care? What I chose, I didn't pick up the flute. I didn't pick up the mirror. I picked up the ashes from the fire, rubbed them gently into my palms. The scent of the jungle, sweet, burnt, eternal, clung to me like a whisper. "I'm not ready," I told him. He smiled, not disappointed, not proud, just knowing. "Good," he said. "That's why I trusted you." Leaving the jungle, I left Don Aurelio's home the next morning, just after sunrise. Mateo came back with the canoe. The jungle seemed quieter, like it had said what it needed to say. As we pulled away, I looked back. We stood at the dock, hands behind his back, the cracked mirror hanging from a string around his neck. No waves, no goodbye, just stillness. And that silence, heavier than any goodbye, followed me all the way to Puerto Maldonado. Now, back in the world, I'm writing this from a small cafe in Lima, 3 flights and 1,000 miles from that place. And I can tell you this. I didn't return from the Amazon with souvenirs. I didn't return with answers. I didn't return with some flashy transformation story. I came back with weight, with questions, with responsibility. So if you're watching this, and you're rethinking of going to the jungle to find yourself, I'll tell you what Don Aurelio told me. Don't go to find, go to listen. Because the forest doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you're afraid to see. If you're lucky, just maybe, it gives you the choice to become someone new. If this story moved you, if it made you think, share it. Talk about it. Let's not let these voices disappear into silence. Don't forget to subscribe. Some journeys change you, and I'll be taking you on more.